The portal closed behind him with a sound like shattering reality, and Yoda fell. Not through space, but through the very fabric of existence itself. The Force screamed around him, twisted into shapes and patterns he had never encountered in 900 years of life. Colors that had no names burned across his vision. Sounds that predated language echoed in his ancient mind. Then, with brutal suddenness, solid ground. Yoda crashed into snow-covered earth hard enough to crater the frozen soil. Pain lanced through his small frame, but centuries of Jedi discipline kept him conscious. He rose slowly, leaning heavily on his Geimer stick, and surveyed his surroundings with eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. Mountains, impossibly tall peaks that clawed at a sky the wrong color, tinged with unnatural purple and green. The air itself felt different here, thick with energies that made the Force recoil and surge simultaneously. This was not his galaxy. This was not even his universe. A roar shattered his contemplation. From between two crystalline formations emerged a creature that defied all biological logic. Easily 4 meters tall, its body was a grotesque fusion of insect and mammal, covered in chitinous plates that wept black ichor. 6 eyes, each burning with malevolent intelligence, fixed on the diminutive figure in the snow. A Silithid, though Yoda had no name for it yet. The creature charged. Yoda's response was instinctive. One 3-fingered hand rose, and the Force answered. The Silithid lifted from the ground as if caught by an invisible giant, its 6 legs scrambling uselessly at empty air. Yoda studied it with clinical detachment, sensing the wrongness that permeated its being. This was not natural evolution. This was corruption, purpose-built malevolence. He released his grip. The creature crashed back to Earth but did not flee. Instead, it opened mandibles wide enough to swallow a human whole and spat a stream of acidic venom. Yoda sidestepped with fluid grace, the projectile hissing as it melted snow where he had stood moments before. Interesting. Adaptation these creatures possessed. More roars. 3 additional Silithids emerged, flanking their companion. Coordinated hunters. Yoda's lightsaber would have made short work of them, but that weapon had been lost in the transition between realities. Only the Force remained, and his walking stick, gnarled wood that had served him for decades. The Silithids attacked in unison, a testament to hive mind intelligence. Yoda moved, and the world seemed to slow around him. The first creature's claw passed through space he had occupied a fraction of a second earlier. The second lunged, mandibles snapping closed on nothing. The third attempted to pin him with a sweeping strike of its barbed tail. Yoda leapt, impossibly high for one so old and small. At the apex of his arc, 3 meters above the snow, he extended both hands. The Force erupted from him in a concussive wave that sent all 4 Silithids tumbling backward like leaves in a storm, but they recovered quickly, their alien biology more resilient than he had anticipated. One managed to close the distance before Yoda landed. Its claw caught his robe, tearing fabric and drawing first blood from his shoulder. Pain sharpened his focus. He spun, his walking stick becoming a blur of motion. The wood, reinforced by the Force, struck with the impact of a sledgehammer. The Silithid's chitinous headplate cracked, ichor spraying across pristine snow. Before the creature could recover, Yoda touched its thorax with one palm. The Force flooded through him, not to destroy, but to understand. In an instant, he glimpsed the hive mind, a vast network of alien consciousness driven by hunger and an inexorable urge to consume. And beyond that, something older, darker, whispering from beneath the earth. He broke the connection as the creature convulsed and collapsed. The remaining 3 Silithids suddenly scattered, their hive mind recognizing a threat beyond their capability to overcome. Within seconds, they had disappeared between the crystal formations, leaving only disturbed snow and splattered ichor as evidence of the encounter. Yoda stood in the sudden silence, breathing heavily. The wound on his shoulder was minor but concerning. Whatever toxin coated those claws, It resisted the healing techniques he attempted. This world played by different rules. The Force existed here. He could feel it, but it was wild, untamed, interwoven with other powers he could not yet name. A sound reached his long ears. Footsteps, multiple pairs, crunching through snow. Voices, speaking a language his mind could not immediately parse, but the Force began translating, feeding meaning directly into his consciousness. Movement sensors indicated something big went down over here. Could be another Silithid nest. I'm telling you, Kaldric, I saw a flash of light. Not natural. Could be arcane residue from a portal. Or could be you've been hitting the dwarven ale too hard again, Marcus. 3 figures crested a nearby ridge. Humans, or near enough. They wore armor that combined metal plates with leather, practical and well used. 2 men and 1 woman, each bearing weapons and an air of professional competence that Yoda recognized from countless battlefields. Adventurers, he sensed. Warriors for hire, perhaps, or seekers of glory. The woman spotted him first. Her hand went to the massive sword strapped to her back, a weapon nearly as tall as she was. By the light! What is that? Yoda straightened, despite his exhaustion and injury. First impressions, crucial they were. Mean no harm, I do. Traveler, I am. Lost, but peaceful. All 3 adventurers froze. The one called Kaldric, a broad-shouldered man with graying temples, raised a hand wreathed in flame. It talks. Marcus, scan for Twilight cult signatures. Could be a new type of faceless one. The younger man, Marcus, his eyes glowing with arcane energy, shook his head slowly. No void corruption, no fell taint, no undead necrosis. But there's something there. Power, but clean, like nothing in the registry. Clean doesn't mean safe, the woman said, though she had not drawn her blade. Her eyes, sharp and assessing, studied Yoda with the wariness of one who had survived by trusting her instincts. State your business, creature. These are human lands, or what's left of them. We don't take kindly to unknown entities materializing near Silithid territory. Yoda leaned on his walking stick, projecting calm through the Force. Their fear was understandable. Yoda, I am called. Know this place I do not. Brought here by accident, I was. A master of an ancient order, seeking only to understand and perhaps to help. Kaldric's flames extinguished, though his guard remained up. A master? Of what order? The Kirin Tor? Cenarian Circle? You're too small for a Tauren. Wrong build for a gnome. Jedi. I was. Though here, that word meaning has not. Yoda sensed their confusion and made a decision. He raised one hand, and a fist-sized rock lifted smoothly from the snow, orbiting his palm in a gentle arc. Not telekinesis as these people knew it, but the Force made manifest. The Force, I command. The energy of life itself, binding all things. Marcus's eyes widened. That's not arcane magic, not even close to the Sunwell patterns. The Titans themselves would want to study this. The woman took a step forward, her hand finally leaving her sword hilt. I'm Lyra Dawnseeker, Paladin of the Silver Hand. My companions are Kaldric Firebrand, Mage of Dalaran, and Marcus Shadowglen, also of Dalaran. If what you say is true, if you truly mean no harm, then you need to come with us. The world you've stumbled into is at war, Master Yoda. Multiple wars, actually. And unknown powers tend to get conscripted by one side or another. Or eliminated as threats, Kaldric added darkly. For your own safety, you should accompany us to Stormwind. Let the King's advisors determine what to make of you. Yoda sensed no immediate deception from them, though caution and suspicion permeated their emotions. Agree, I do. Much to learn I have. This Stormwind, far is it? Lyra smiled for the first time, though it did not reach her eyes. Far enough. And the journey will give you a crash course in Azeroth survival. Welcome to our world, Master Yoda. Try not to die before we reach civilization. The journey to Stormwind took 3 days, and each day brought revelations that shook even Yoda's ancient understanding of reality. This world, Azeroth as his companions called it, had suffered cataclysms that made the Clone Wars look like minor skirmishes. The very land bore scars from conflicts between godlike beings called Titans, demonic invasions from a realm called the Twisting Nether, and the constant warfare between 2 factions, the Alliance and the Horde. On the first night, camped beneath stars arranged in constellations Yoda did not recognize, Kaldric attempted to explain the basics. The Alliance is a coalition. Humans, dwarves, gnomes, night elves, Draenei, Worgen, and recently, the Pandaren who chose our side. We fight for order, for civilization, for the light. And the Horde? Yoda asked, sensing the bitterness beneath the mage's words. Orcs, trolls, Tauren, undead, blood elves, goblins, and their own Pandaren. Lyra's hand clenched around the whetstone she'd been using on her blade. They claim to fight for honor and freedom, but honor doesn't excuse the atrocities committed in its name. The burning of Teldrassil, the plague at South Shore, Theramore's destruction. Marcus, younger and perhaps less hardened by conflict, interjected. To be fair, we've committed our own atrocities. Strathome, the Purge of Dalaran, Camp Torajo. Neither side holds moral high ground anymore. Careful, Marcus, Kaldric warned. Such talk edges toward treason. Yoda absorbed this, seeing troubling parallels to conflicts in his own galaxy. Endless, this cycle seems. Vengeance breeding vengeance. Break it, can you not? Lyra laughed, a sound without humor. Many have tried. All have failed. The latest attempt at peace died when Sylvanas Windrunner, warchief of the Horde, burned the Night Elven World Tree with thousands of innocents inside. That was 2 years ago. The war that followed only recently reached an uneasy ceasefire. But it's not just the faction war, Marcus added, his young face grave. The Burning Legion invaded 6 years ago. Demons pouring through portals, led by Sargeras himself, a corrupted titan. We barely survived that. Before that, the Lich King in Northrend, the cataclysm that shattered the world, the Iron Horde, N'Zoth and the Black Empire, the jailer in the Shadowlands. He shook his head. Azeroth has faced more apocalypses in the last 20 years than most worlds see in millennia. Yoda closed his eyes, reaching out through the Force. Now that he had context, he could feel it. The planet itself, wounded and scarred, yet possessed of a will so vast it dwarfed continents. Alive, this world is, a titan itself, sleeping within. All 3 adventurers stared at him. Kaldric spoke carefully. The Titans themselves confirmed it. Azeroth is a world soul, the last uncorrupted one in existence. The Legion wanted to claim her, to birth a dark Titan. The old gods sought to corrupt her for the void. Every cosmic force in creation has designs on this world. Understanding crystallized. Yoda opened his eyes, meeting each of their gazes in turn. Why strong here the Force is. A focal point this world represents. The Force and this world soul. Connected they may be. Lyra stood abruptly, her armor creaking. If what you're saying is true, if this force of yours is connected to Azeroth herself, then the faction leaders need to know. Immediately. Every advantage matters in the wars to come. Wars? Yoda's ears drooped. More coming? There are? Marcus's laugh was bitter. Master Yoda, there are always more wars coming. On the second day, they encountered their first patrol. Horde patrol. A dozen orcs mounted on massive wolves, their green skin marked with war paint and ritual scars. Leading them was a shaman, judging by the totems strapped to his back, each pulsing with elemental energy that made the Force recoil and surge in equal measure. Alliance dogs, the shaman spat, his common rough but understandable. You trespass in contested territory. Lay down your weapons and you die quickly. Lyra's response was to draw her greatsword, the blade erupting with holy fire. Contested? This is Westfall, Horde filth. Your kind has no claim here. Caldric's hands began weaving arcane patterns, frost gathering around his fingers. Marcus muttered an incantation, his form blurring as a shield of pure arcane energy enveloped him. The orcs lowered their axes and readied their bows. Battle seemed inevitable. Yoda stepped forward, placing himself between the two groups. Stop. Violence. Unnecessary it is. Speak. We can. Understand each other. We must. The orc shaman laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. Little green one thinks to stop a war with words? Foolish. Step aside or be trampled. Little, perhaps. Foolish. No. Yoda's eyes hardened. The force gathered around him, visible now as a faint luminescence. Every weapon on both sides suddenly wrenched free from their owner's grips, floating in the air between the two groups. Swords, axes, bows, staves, all suspended by invisible threads of power. The effect was immediate. Orcs and humans alike stared in shock and growing fear. The shaman's eyes narrowed. What sorcery is this? Not arcane, not fell, not even void corruption. What are you? A peacekeeper, I try to be. These weapons, return them I shall. But first, listen you must. Yoda's voice carried a weight that made even the battle-hardened orcs hesitate. Fought in wars, I have. Seen civilizations fall because of hatred and pride. Different, you are not. The same path, you walk. Destruction, it leads to. For both sides. Lyra hissed behind him. Master Yoda, these savages understand only strength. They burned Teldrassil. They cannot be reasoned with. The orc shaman's face darkened. And your kind slaughtered innocents at Camp Torajo, burned our villages in Durotar, pursued a genocidal campaign against the Forsaken. Do not speak of atrocities, Paladin, when your hands drip with just as much blood. Enough. Yoda's voice cracked like a whip. The weapons dropped to the ground simultaneously. Right, you both are. Wrong, you both are. This cycle, end it must, or consume you all, it will. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then the orc shaman dismounted his wolf, approaching Yoda with cautious steps. Up close, his tusked face showed age and wisdom beyond his years. You speak truth, small one. I am Kragthok of the Earthen Ring. We shamans see the elements weeping at this endless war. But seeing truth and changing it are different things. Change begins with understanding. Yoda met the shaman's eyes. The Force shows me your heart. Tired of death, you are. Want peace, you do. But bound by honor and duty to your war chief. Kragthok's eyes widened. You read thoughts? Emotions, I sense. Intent, I feel. Lies and truth. Distinguish them I can. Yoda turned to Lyra. And you, Paladin, hate the Horde, you do. But righteous, this hatred is not. Personal, it has become. Lost someone to them, you did. Lyra's face went pale, then flushed with anger. My brother died at Teldrassil. Burned alive because Sylvanas wanted to break hope. So yes, Master Yoda, my hatred is personal. Understand, I do. Justified, it feels. But heal you, it does not. Nor bring back the dead, it will. Only create more death. Yoda's ancient eyes held infinite sadness. This path, walked it before I have. In my own galaxy, in my own time. Learned, I did, that vengeance hollow victory brings. Kragthok spoke quietly. I lost my mate at Theramore, vaporized by your Archmage's mana bomb. So I understand the Paladin's pain, even as she understands mine. He looked at his warriors, then at the Alliance adventurers. Today, we do not fight. Let the small one's wisdom spare us this bloodshed. But tomorrow? He shook his head. Tomorrow the war continues. The Orc patrol departed, leaving Yoda's party unmolested. But as they resumed their journey, Lyra's resentment was palpable. You had no right to stop that fight. They're our enemies. Your enemies. They are not. Your mirrors, perhaps. Reflections of your own capacity for violence and loss. Yoda's voice was gentle but firm. See this. You must. If survive you wish to. Kaldric placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. The creature has a point. We've become what we hate. All of us. But acknowledging it doesn't stop the war machine. Stop it, no, Yoda agreed. But slow it, perhaps. Question it, certainly. Plant seeds of change we can. Grow they will. In time. Marcus spoke up from behind, his young voice uncertain. Master Yoda, you mentioned your own galaxy. Does that mean there are peaceful worlds out there? Places where war isn't constant? Yoda's silence was answer enough. Stormwind rose before them on the third day, like a monument to human resilience and ambition. Massive stone walls, gleaming white towers that clawed at the sky, banners bearing the Lion of the Alliance snapping in the wind. The city had been destroyed and rebuilt multiple times, each iteration stronger than the last. It reminded Yoda of Coruscant, though on a much smaller scale. The gates were heavily guarded. Soldiers in plate armor bearing rifles that combined gunpowder with arcane enhancement. Mages whose eyes glowed with barely contained power. Even a regiment of dwarven mountain troops astride their rams. This was a civilization at war. Every citizen a potential soldier. Lyra's reputation granted them swift passage. Within an hour, they stood in the throne room of Stormwind Keep, before King Anduin Wrynn himself. The young king could not have been more than 30 years old, yet his eyes held the weariness of someone who had seen far too much. He sat upon a throne of carved stone, wearing armor of blue and gold, a magnificent sword resting against his seat. Around him stood his advisors. A night elf priestess whose purple skin seemed to absorb light, a gnome in a mech suit bristling with weapons, a dwarf paladin whose beard was braided with holy symbols, and a human woman in the robes of a master mage, her white hair indicating high elf ancestry. Lyra Dawnseeker. Anduin's voice was young but carried the weight of command. Your report indicated an entity of unknown origin with unprecedented abilities. I see you were not exaggerating. Yoda bowed, a gesture of respect between equals. King Anduin Wrynn, an honor it is. Yoda, I am called. From another reality I have come. By accident, not intent. The night elf priestess stepped forward, her eyes glowing with silver light as she studied him. High Priestess Tyrande Whisperwind. She introduced herself, her voice musical yet hard as steel. I sense no corruption in you, no taint of the void or fel. Yet your power is unlike anything I have encountered in 10,000 years of life. What are you? A Jedi Master, I was. Though here, that title meaning has not. Yoda met her ageless gaze. The Force I wield. The energy of life itself, flowing through all living things. In balance, it must be maintained. The light and the dark, eternal they are. The human mage, who had been introduced as Archmage Jaina Proudmoore, spoke with fascination tinging her voice. You speak of balance between light and dark as if it's natural, but the light and the void are antithetical to each other. Mutual destruction, they represent. In your cosmology, perhaps, Yoda acknowledged. But balance, true balance, requires both. Cannot have life without death, cannot have creation without destruction. The Force teaches this. Your world, understand this, it does not. Cosmology divided, forces in conflict, balance absent. Anduin leaned forward. Are you suggesting that our eternal struggle against the darkness is fundamentally wrong? Wrong? No. Incomplete, yes. Yoda's ears drooped. Fight the darkness, you must, but deny it exists within you as well. Foolish. The paladin, the priestess, the mage, all of you. Capacity for light, you have. Capacity for darkness, also. Acknowledge both, control both, transcend both. This is balance. The dwarf paladin, High Exarch Turalion, slammed his fist on the armrest of his chair. Heresy. The light is absolute. There is no darkness within the righteous. Then, righteous, you are not, Yoda said simply, and the throne room erupted in outrage. Anduin raised his hand, calling for silence. Peace. All of you. His young face showed internal conflict. I have wielded the light my entire life. It has guided me, protected me, given me purpose. But I have also seen its adherents commit atrocities in its name. The Scarlet Crusade, the light-bound Draenei of alternate Draenor. Perhaps the creature speaks truth we are uncomfortable hearing. Jaina spoke carefully. If what you say is true, Master Yoda, if you possess abilities beyond our magic systems and understanding of cosmology, then you represent something unprecedented. The Horde will want you. The various cosmic forces will take interest. You need protection, or containment, Tyrande said coldly. Forgive me, High King, but we know nothing of this creature's true intent. For all we know, it could be a void construct designed to sow discord. Sense my emotions you can, yes? Yoda looked at the High Priestess. Read my intent you may. No deception in me you will find. Only desire to understand, to help if able, and to find way home if possible. Tyrande's silver eyes flared brighter, and Yoda felt her consciousness brush against his through the Force. The sensation was unlike anything he had experienced before, like moonlight given form and will. She probed deeply, searching for corruption, for hidden malice. He allowed it, opening his mind fully. After a long moment, she withdrew, her expression shaken. He speaks truth. I sense no deception. But more than that, I glimpsed his memories. A galaxy far beyond this one. An order of peacekeepers that fell to darkness from within. 1,000 years of life lived in service to balance. She turned to Anduin. He is what he claims, my king. And his knowledge could change everything. Anduin stood, descending from his throne to stand before Yoda. Up close, the king seemed even younger, burdened by responsibility beyond his years. Master Yoda, I grant you sanctuary in Stormwind. You will be free to move about the city, though guards will accompany you for your own safety. In return, I ask that you share your knowledge with us. Teach us these Force techniques. Help us understand this balance you speak of. And perhaps, he hesitated, help us find a path to lasting peace. One condition. I have, Yoda said. Teach only those willing to learn. I shall. Force others I will not. The Force, a gift it is, a burden also. Both understand. Students must. Agreed. Anduin extended his hand. Yoda grasped it with his three-fingered grip, and in that moment, the Force surged between them. The young king gasped as he felt, for the first time, the vast web of life energy connecting all things, every citizen in Stormwind, every creature in the forests beyond, every blade of grass and swimming fish, all connected, all part of a greater whole. By the light, Anduin whispered. I felt them. All of them. Is this what you perceive constantly? Part of why ancient I am, Yoda said with a slight smile. Exhausting, it can be, but beautiful also, precious, worth protecting. In the weeks that followed, Yoda became an unlikely fixture in Stormwind. Quarters were established for him in the Mage Quarter, a modest apartment overlooking the canals. He spent his days exploring the city, observing its people, and beginning to understand the complex web of conflicts that defined Azeroth. The citizens' reactions to him varied wildly. Children were fascinated, following him through the streets and begging for demonstrations of his abilities. Adults were more cautious, their experience with unknown entities colored by decades of betrayals and invasions. The dwarven district welcomed him warmly, their culture valuing ancient wisdom. The Cathedral of Light was more divided, with some priests declaring him a manifestation of the light's wisdom, others warning he might be a void trick. But it was among Stormwind's defenders that Yoda found his first real students. 7 individuals, drawn by curiosity or desperation or hope, who sought what he offered. There was Matthias Shaw, Master of Psi. 7. The Alliance's elite intelligence organization. A man who lived in shadows and dealt in secrets, yet hungered for something beyond pragmatic necessity. His was a soul exhausted by the moral compromises required by his position. Valera Sanguinar, blood elf rogue who had served as Anduin's friend and protector since his youth. She carried guilt for her people's addiction to magic, seeking a power source that would not corrupt. Magni Bronzebeard, the former king of Ironforge, transformed by mysterious magics into living diamond. He could hear Azeroth's voice, but struggled to understand what she asked of him. Perhaps the Force could bridge that gap. Tess Greymane, daughter of the Gilnean king, Worgen who fought against her curse daily. She sought control, not just of her bestial form, but of the rage that came with it. Lillian Voss, one of the forsaken undead who had broken free of the Horde. She existed in a state between life and death, her soul somehow still bound to a corpse. Yoda sensed in her a unique connection to the Force, death-aspected, but potent. Wrathion, the Black Dragon Prince, last sane member of his corrupted flight. He bore the weight of his species' genocidal history and sought redemption through preventing future catastrophes. His morality was complex, his methods often questionable, but his intent genuine. And finally, young Anduin himself, who despite his duties as king, insisted on attending every lesson. He brought with him the weight of a world's hope and the loneliness of leadership. Their first lesson took place in a secluded courtyard within the Mage Quarter, warded against observation by Jaina's magic at Yoda's request. The 7 students sat in a circle, with Yoda at the center. "The Force," he began, his voice carrying to each of them. "Not magic it is, not arcane energy to be commanded, not holy power to be channeled. A fundamental aspect of reality itself, the Force represents. The energy created by life, surrounding and penetrating all things, binding the galaxy together." Valera raised her hand. "But we already have connections to powers. I draw on nature magic through my survival training. Anduin channels the light. Magni hears Azeroth herself. How is this different? Different, it is. Complementary, it is also." Yoda tapped his stick against the ground. "Your powers, specific they are, defined by rules, limitations, philosophies. The Force, more primal, exists it did before your titans shaped this world. Will exist, it shall, after all your civilizations fall to dust. Learn to touch it, you can, while maintaining your other connections." Wrathion, his human form impeccable in tailored clothing that concealed his draconic nature, spoke with his characteristic arrogance. "And why should we trust you, little green one? For all we know, this Force of yours could be another path to corruption, like the old god's whispers or the burning legion's promises of power." Yoda's ancient eyes fixed on the Black Dragon. "Valid, your concern is. Trust earned, not given, should be. But answer me this, young dragon. Your flight, corrupted it was, by an old god, yes? Why?" Wrathion's confident expression faltered. "Deathwing, my father, was driven mad by N'Zoth's whispers. The corruption spread to all black dragons, but not to you," Yoda observed. "Why? I was purified in my egg, cleansed of the taint before it could take root. Removed, the corruption was. But vulnerable, you remain, yes? Could happen again, it might. Because understand the nature of corruption, you do not. Fight it by avoidance only, not by true resistance." Yoda rose, moving to stand before Rathian. The Force teaches different way. Acknowledge the darkness exists, we do. That within each of us, capacity for terrible acts resides. Your father, not merely corrupted he was, a door opened, he did. Through choices, through pride, through belief that power absolute, control required. Invited the corruption, in a sense. He did. Matthias Shaw leaned forward, his scarred face intent. You're saying corruption doesn't just happen to us. We choose it. In a manner, yes. Vulnerable, all beings are. Weak moments, we all have. But invitation required, true corruption needs. A yes, however small, to the whispers. Yoda returned to the center of the circle. The dark side of the Force. Similar it is. Seductive, powerful. Offers quick solutions to complex problems. Use it, you can. But cost, there always is. Control you think you have disappears slowly. Until the darkness controls you. Tess Greymane's voice came out partially growled, her Worgen nature close to the surface. I feel that every day. The curse, it whispers to me, promises strength, freedom from human weakness, but it also wants blood, violence, submission to instinct. Your struggle, I sense, Yoda said gently. The Force, help it can, not remove the curse, but give you tools to master it, rather than be mastered. He closed his eyes, and the Force gathered in the courtyard. Every student felt it, a presence beyond description, warm yet cool, energizing yet calming. It touched each of them differently, responding to their individual natures. Anduin gasped. It feels like the light, but deeper, more fundamental. Magni's crystalline form chimed as he resonated with the energy. Azeroth sings stronger. The Force amplifies her voice. Connected, you are feeling, Yoda explained. To each other, to the world, to all living things. This, the foundation of Force training, is awareness, mindfulness, presence in the moment. Lillian Voss, whose undead nature usually left her numb to most sensations, felt tears on her rotted cheeks. I feel warm. Emperor's mercy. I haven't felt warm since I died. Life energy, the Force is, Yoda said. Undead, you are. But not truly dead. Between, you exist. The Force recognizes this, flows through you differently, but flows nonetheless. The lesson continued for hours. Yoda taught them basic meditation techniques, how to quiet their minds and sense the Force around them. Some grasped it quickly. Anduin, with his existing connection to the light, found the transition natural. Magni, already attuned to Azeroth's voice, simply needed to expand his awareness. Valera's rogue instincts, her ability to sense danger and move through shadows, were already rudimentary Force sensitivity. Others struggled. Rathian's draconic mind, used to thinking on vast timescales and with calculated precision, found the present moment focus difficult. Matthias, trained to constantly analyze and scheme, could not turn off his suspicious nature. Tess fought against her Worgen instincts, which demanded action over contemplation. As the sun set over Stormwind, casting orange and purple hues across the courtyard, Yoda ended the lesson. Practice daily, you must. 10 minutes of meditation, minimum. Expand your awareness slowly. Force yourselves not. The Force, patient it is. Patient, you must be also. As the students filed out, discussing their experiences in hushed, excited tones, Anduin remained. The young king sat beside Yoda on the stone bench, both watching the stars emerge in the darkening sky. I felt something during the meditation, Anduin said quietly. Beyond the usual light connection, I felt her, Azeroth. Scared she is, hurt, but also hopeful. Yoda nodded slowly. Correct, you are. The world soul, connected to the Force she is. Perhaps the largest concentration of living Force energy I have encountered. A titan gestating, yet already conscious. Remarkable. The titans told us she must be protected at all costs. Every cosmic force wants to claim her or corrupt her. The light wants to order her. The void wants to consume her. The Legion wanted to use her as a weapon. The old gods sought to make her their black empire reborn. Anduin's voice cracked slightly. Sometimes I wonder if we're just another faction trying to control her fate. Wonder. You should. Question. You must. Certainty. The enemy of wisdom it is. Yoda placed a small hand on the king's armored knee. But sense your heart. I do. Control her, you do not wish. Protect her, you do. Different, that is. Anduin was silent for a long moment. My father, Varian, died fighting the Legion, gave his life so others could escape. Before that, I watched him wage war after war, saw the toll it took. He was a great warrior, a fierce king, but I wonder if he was happy. If any of us can be happy while the world burns. Happy? Yoda chuckled softly. Happiness, fleeting it is. Contentment, peace, these more achievable. Your father loved you, he did. Saw that. I do. In your memories. Purpose, he found in protecting what mattered. That, a form of peace it is. I want to be different than him. I want to find a way to end the wars. Not just win them. But every time I try, the world throws another crisis at us. The Horde, the Legion, N'Zoth, Sylvanas, the Jailer. It never ends. End, it might not. But meaning, you give it. Choice, always there is. React to crises, or shape the future. Yoda's ancient eyes reflected starlight. These students, beginning they are, trained in balance, in awareness, they will see beyond faction hatred. Plant seeds, we do. Grow, they shall. Perhaps not in your lifetime, but grow they will. Anduin looked at the ancient Jedi with new understanding. You're not trying to stop the war immediately. You're trying to change how people think about war. Change the thinking, change the world. Long work it is. Generations it may take, but alternative. Yoda gestured to the city around them, fortified and militarized. This. Forever this. Until nothing remains to fight for. The young king stood, resolve hardening in his features. Then we begin. And we don't stop, no matter how long it takes. But the peace of that moment was not to last. 3 weeks into Yoda's training program, as his 7 students progressed rapidly in their force sensitivity, alarms rang throughout Stormwind. Not the city's bells, but something deeper. An arcane alert, the kind reserved for catastrophic threats. Yoda was in the middle of a levitation exercise with Tess and Valera when the courtyard's defensive wards flared brilliant red. Jaina Proudmoore materialized in a flash of arcane energy, her face pale beneath her white hair. Master Yoda, you need to come with me. Now. Something's happened at the Dark Portal. The Dark Portal, as Yoda had learned, was a massive gateway connecting Azeroth to another shattered world called Outland. Once, it had been the Horde's invasion route. Now it served as a monitored passage, heavily guarded by both factions. But the guards were not what concerned Jaina. They teleported directly to the blasted lands, the wasteland surrounding the portal. What greeted them defied comprehension. The portal itself, a massive structure of dark stone that usually showed the crimson skies of Outland, now displayed something else entirely. A swirling vortex of green and black energy shot through with lightning that seemed to scream, and pouring through it, an army. Not orcs, not demons. Something worse. The creatures were humanoid in shape, but their skin was void black, their eyes burning with fell green fire. They moved with unnatural coordination, wielding weapons that seemed to tear reality itself. Behind them came larger horrors, beings of pure shadow wearing crowns of twisting thorns. Throne, help us, breathed Commander Veldris, the human officer in charge of the portal's defense. We've sent word to Stormwind and Orgrimmar both. but reinforcements are hours away. We have maybe 300 troops total. They have thousands. Yoda reached out through the Force and immediately recoiled. These entities, they were wrong. Not alive, not exactly. Animated by will and malice, but hollow inside, like puppets of flesh worn by something vast and terrible. Void corruption, Jaina said, her voice tight with fear. But not like anything I've seen. This is focused, directed. Someone or something is commanding them. As if in answer, a figure emerged from the portal. Tall, impossibly thin, wearing robes that seemed to be woven from living darkness. Its face was a blank mask, but Yoda felt its attention fix on him with predatory intensity. A voice echoed across the battlefield, coming from everywhere and nowhere. The anomaly, the disturbance in the pattern. So this is what drew our attention. The masked figure raised one elongated hand. The Masters wish to understand you, little green interloper. They will dissect your essence, learn what you are, and then unmake you as they will unmake this corrupted world. Void Lords, Jaina whispered in horror. Actual Void Lords, not just their servants. This is impossible. They shouldn't be able to manifest here. Possible. It is, because of me. Yoda's voice was heavy with guilt. My arrival, a beacon it created, showed them a weak point in reality. Drawn them here, I have. The masked Void Lord laughed, a sound like shattering glass. Partially correct, anomaly. But we were always coming. You simply accelerated the timeline. Azeroth will fall. The last Titan will be corrupted. And the universe will know true unity in the void. The Shadow Army charged. 300 Alliance soldiers stood against thousands. The slaughter would be complete in minutes. Unless, Yoda closed his eyes. The Force swelled around him, greater than he had ever channeled before. He felt Azeroth herself respond, the world soul recognizing a kindred power. Life, energy, and Titan magic intertwined, creating something unprecedented. Hold the line, he commanded, his small voice somehow carrying across the entire battlefield. Trust in the Force, you must. Flow through you, I shall. Together, we fight. What happened next would be recorded in the histories of both Alliance and Horde as the miracle at the Dark Portal. Every soldier present, human and dwarf and night elf, felt their awareness expand. Suddenly, they could sense each other's positions, anticipate each other's moves. They fought not as individuals, but as a single organism. Yoda stood at the center, his walking stick planted in the ground, both hands raised. Through him flowed battle meditation on a scale he had never attempted. 300 minds linked, their combined strength multiplied exponentially. A soldier cornered by 3 void creatures suddenly felt his squad mates' positions without looking. He ducked left precisely as arrows flew past him, striking 2 of his attackers. A mage running out of mana found her strength renewed, pulling from the collective pool of energy Yoda had created. A wounded paladin, bleeding out from a gut wound, felt healing energy flood through him from a dozen different sources simultaneously. But the Void Lord was not idle. It raised both hands, and darkness spread across the battlefield like oil. Where it touched, Alliance soldiers screamed as their minds were assaulted by whispers. Promises of power, revelations of terrible truths, visions of loved ones tortured in infinite darkness. Yoda felt them faltering. The battle meditation wobbled. If he lost control now, every mind linked to his would shatter like glass. He drew deeper on the Force than ever before. In his mind's eye, he saw his old master, Qui-Gon Jinn, not as a Force ghost, but as a memory. Trust in the living Force, my old friend. It will guide you. The darkness receded. Not destroyed, but pushed back. Wherever Yoda's influence extended, the Void's corruption could not take root, but he could feel his strength waning. 900 years old, his body was. Limits, even Jedi Masters had. A roar split the air. From the north, a massive force appeared. Horde forces, led by mounted Orcish raiders and Tauran warriors on their Kodo beasts. At their head rode Thrall, the former warchief, his eyes glowing with shamanic power. "For Azeroth!" he bellowed, and his warriors echoed the cry. The Void Lord turned its attention to this new threat. Its army split, half engaging the Horde forces. The battle became a three-way catastrophe. Alliance and Horde, ancient enemies, fighting a common foe. But they were not coordinated, their attacks interfering with each other as much as helping. Yoda made a decision that would change everything. He extended his battle meditation to include the Horde forces. The effect was immediate and shocking. Horde warriors suddenly felt Alliance soldiers' positions in their minds. Alliance troops sensed Horde attack patterns. The two factions, linked through the Force, began fighting as one army without anyone giving the order. An orc grunt and a human footman, who moments ago would have killed each other on sight, found themselves fighting back to back. The orc's axe covered the human's blind spot. The human's shield protected the orc from incoming void bolts. They moved in perfect synchronization, as if they had trained together for years. Thrall felt the connection and understood immediately. "The small green one. He links us." The shaman raised his doomhammer high. "All warriors, open your minds. Trust the bond." But the cost was tremendous. Yoda felt his consciousness spreading across hundreds of minds. Each death, he felt. Each wound, he shared. The pain was overwhelming, but he held on, had to hold on. The Void Lord sensed his weakness. "You sacrifice yourself for cattle, anomaly. How noble, how foolish." It began to channel power, drawing on the infinite darkness beyond the portal. The mask on its face cracked, revealing something underneath. Not a face, but an absence. A hole in reality shaped like eyes and mouth. Shadow erupted from the Void Lord, a wave of pure anti-existence. Everything it touched simply ceased to be. No explosion, no transformation, simply unmade. Yoda felt it coming. Felt it would kill hundreds of linked warriors. Felt his own power insufficient to stop it, and then, impossibly, more power flooded into him. From Stormwind, he felt his 7 students enter deep meditation. Anduin, Valera, Rathian, Matthias, Magni, Tess, Lillian, each added their strength to his, and through Magni's unique connection, Azeroth herself contributed. The World Soul, awakening briefly to protect her children. The Force erupted from Yoda in a pillar of light visible for miles. It met the Void Lord's wave of darkness head-on. Reality itself screamed at the collision of fundamental forces. For a moment, it seemed the darkness would win. The light wavered. Yoda's small form began to crack, his ancient body unable to contain such power. Then he heard voices, not with his ears, but through the Force. Every warrior on the battlefield, Alliance and Horde alike, lending him their will. Thousands of voices, speaking dozens of languages, united in a single word: fight. The darkness shattered. The Void Lord staggered backward, its impossible form flickering. This is not possible. You are individuals, separated, divided by hate and fear, and united by hope, Yoda said, his voice barely a whisper but heard by all. Stronger than darkness, hope is. More enduring than hate. This you will never understand. He closed his fist, and the Void Lord imploded, simply folded in on itself, its essence scattered across infinite realities. The Shadow Army, without its master's will to animate them, collapsed into piles of ash. The dark portal flickered and returned to normal, showing Outland's familiar hellish landscape. The void corruption was gone. Yoda released the battle meditation. 300 Alliance soldiers and 500 Horde warriors all collapsed simultaneously, utterly exhausted but alive. Most alive. Casualties had been minimal, 37 dead, mostly from the initial charge before Yoda had established the link. In any normal battle against such odds, all of them would have died. Yoda himself crumpled. His walking stick clattered on the ground. Thrall was the first to reach him, scooping up the tiny figure with surprising gentleness for hands so large. "Shaman." "I am," Thrall said, his voice thick with emotion. "Feel the elements. I do. Speak to them. But what you did, little father, that was beyond anything I have known. You saved us all." Yoda's eyes opened to slits. "Saved yourselves, you did. Gave you the tools only, I did. United, you chose to be. That, the true miracle was." Jaina and Commander Veldris ran up, both shocked to see the former Horde warchief holding the Alliance's mysterious advisor. Hands went to weapons instinctively. "Peace," Thrall said firmly. "Whatever animosity exists between our peoples, today we stood as one. All felt it. Cannot deny it, we can." He looked down at Yoda. "He showed us what is possible." Veldris lowered his sword slowly. The Horde still burned Teldrassil, still slaughtered innocents, and the Alliance still committed genocide at Camp Toraho, a Tauran warrior said, stepping forward. His massive frame was covered in wounds, but he stood with dignity. "Both sides have sins. Both sides have blood on their hands. But today we were brothers in arms. Forget that. We should not." Murmurs of agreement rose from both Alliance and Horde soldiers. Something had changed. The battle meditation had shown them each other's fears, hopes, pain. Hard to see someone as a monster when you had felt their love for their family, their desire to return home safely. A portal opened near them, arcane magic shimmering. King Anduin stepped through, followed by his advisors and the 7 students. He took in the scene with wide eyes, bodies of void creatures everywhere, exhausted warriors of both factions, and Thrall, holding Yoda like a precious artifact. "Thrall," Anduin said carefully, "I did not expect to find you here. Nor I you, young king. But circumstances bring strange alliances." Thrall gently transferred Yoda to Anduin's arms. "Your advisor has earned respect from the Horde this day. Take care of him. The world has need of such wisdom." As Thrall and his warriors departed, some limping, others carrying wounded comrades, Anduin looked down at Yoda. The ancient Jedi's breathing was labored, his skin paler than normal. "Master Yoda, what did you do? I felt it in Stormwind, felt you pulling on our connection. I've never experienced power like that. Necessary it was, but cost, there always is." Yoda coughed, green blood speckling his lips. "Pushed too far, this old body has. Rest, I must. Long rest." "Healers!" Anduin shouted. "Now!" But Yoda shook his head weakly. "Heal me, they cannot. The Force, understand it, they do not. Time, I need. Meditation. But first, tell them, both sides, what they felt today. Hold on to it they must. The truth, it was. Beneath hate, beneath fear, same they are. All of them." As consciousness faded, Yoda heard Anduin's voice. "I will. I promise. Rest now, Master. You've earned it." Yoda woke 3 days later in his quarters in Stormwind. Sunlight streamed through windows, and he could hear the city's sounds outside. Normal sounds. Life continuing. His body ached in ways he had not felt since the Clone Wars. Every movement took effort, but he was alive. Barely, but alive. The door opened softly. Valera entered, carrying a tray with soup and bread. "You're awake. Thank the stars. We feared you might not wake at all." Yoda managed a weak smile. "Kill me. That easily you cannot. Too stubborn I am." She helped him sit up, propping pillows behind him. "What you did at the Dark Portal, it's all anyone talks about. Alliance and Horde soldiers sharing the same barracks while they recover, talking to each other like old friends. Some are even planning to stay in contact after they're discharged. It's unprecedented. Good. A beginning, it is. Small, but significant. Yoda sipped the soup. The students? How are they? Changed. All of us. When we linked our power to yours, we felt everything. The battle, the Void Lord, even Azeroth herself. Valera's eyes shone with unshed tears. I felt Horde warriors' love for their families, their fear of death, their hope for peace. They're not monsters. They're just people, like us. Yes, people they are. Flawed, capable of terrible things, but also capable of greatness, worthy of compassion. Yoda set down the bowl. This lesson, spread it you must. To others, beyond just our 7 students. Valera nodded. King Anduin has already approved an expansion of the training program. We're calling it the Order of the Balanced Force. Dozens have volunteered, even some Horde members, through secret channels. Yoda's ears perked up. Horde members? How? Thrall sent word. He wants to send his own students to learn from you. Says the spirits told him this is the path to ending the eternal war. She smiled slightly. Of course, it would have to be secret. Most of the Horde leadership would see it as betrayal. Most of the Alliance too, I suspect. Yoda closed his eyes, reaching out through the Force. He could feel them now, the seeds planted. In Stormwind, in Orgrimmar, in neutral cities like Dalaran and Shatrath, individuals who had glimpsed another way during the battle, who wanted to learn more. But he also felt darkness gathering. His arrival had been noticed by more than just the Void Lords. Other powers, cosmic and terrible, turned their attention to Azeroth. The battle at the Dark Portal was just the beginning. A week later, Yoda stood before an expanded class. 50 students now, instead of 7. They filled the courtyard, a mix of races and classes. Humans and orcs sat beside each other, old enemies learning to be future allies. Night elves and blood elves, divided by millennia of conflict, meditated in synchronized breathing. Draenei and Tauren, Worgen and trolls, even a few undead Forsaken and a goblin who claimed he was only there for the business opportunities. Anduin stood at the back, observing. Next to him, to everyone's shock, was Bane Bloodhoof, High Chieftain of the Tauren and member of the Horde Council. The massive Tauren's presence in Stormwind had nearly caused a riot, but Anduin had guaranteed his safety personally. Begin, we shall, Yoda said, his voice still weak but growing stronger daily. Taught you I have the basics, meditation, awareness, simple telekinesis, but deeper lessons you now ready for. He gestured, and a stone rose from the ground. But this time, instead of floating smoothly, it trembled. See this? Instability. Why? One of the new students, a young human mage, raised her hand. Because you're still recovering, Master? No. Because divided, my focus is, part of me fears. Fears I have pushed too far. Fears I have brought danger to this world. This fear manifests in my control of the Force. The stone shattered into dust. The dark side, this is. Not evil itself, but emotion uncontrolled. Fear, anger, hate. Powerful, they are. Seductive, give strength in the moment, but consume you over time. An orc warrior, his green skin marked with honor scars, spoke up. But warriors must embrace rage in battle. It gives us strength to fight. Embrace it, yes. Controlled rage. A tool it is, but consumed by it. Yoda shook his head. Then the warrior controls you, not you it. Seen this, I have. In my own order. Jedi who fell to the dark side became what they fought against. More dangerous than any external enemy, corruption from within is. He looked at each student in turn. Why teach you this? Because dark times coming are. The Void Lords, one threat they are, but others exist. The Legion, though defeated, waits. Old gods, though imprisoned, scheme. And your own factions, Even now, prepare for next conflict. Bane's deep voice rumbled. Master Yoda speaks truth. The ceasefire between Alliance and Horde is fragile. Many on both sides want war to resume. They see peace as weakness. Then change their minds, you must, Yoda said firmly. Show them another way, not through words alone, through example, through living the balance. He raised his walking stick. Exercise, we shall practice. Pair up, Alliance with Horde, human with orc, elf with troll. Your task simple. Share one memory through the Force. One moment that defined you. The courtyard erupted in nervous mutters. Alliance and Horde pairing up was controversial enough. Sharing intimate memories was almost inconceivable. But slowly, reluctantly, they began to move. A human paladin found himself facing an orc shaman. They stood awkwardly for a moment before sitting cross-legged, facing each other. Yoda moved between pairs, guiding them into meditation, helping them lower their barriers. What happened next was profound. The paladin, expecting to see brutality and savagery in the orc's memory, instead witnessed a young shaman training with his grandfather, learning to speak with the elements, feeling joy when he first called rain to water dying crops. The orc, expecting fanatical religious fervor from the paladin, instead saw a young man kneeling by his dying mother's bed, praying desperately to the light for healing, and feeling it answer, not because of righteousness, but because of love. When they opened their eyes, both had tears. Understanding, harder to hate it is, Yoda observed, when walked in another's memories you have. By the end of the session, something remarkable had occurred. Alliance and Horde members, who entered as wary strangers, left as something approaching friends. Not unified, not yet, but no longer seeing each other as inherently evil. Anduin and Bane watched them go. The young king turned to the Tauren chieftain. Is it wrong that I have more hope now than I've had in years? Hope is never wrong, Bane replied. Though whether that hope proves justified, time will tell. Many will oppose what we're attempting here. Oppose. They will, Yoda agreed, joining them. But stopped. They cannot be. Already, the seeds grow. Students spread across the world, they will. Teach others. Slowly, gradually, but inevitably. Anduin smiled. You speak as if you won't be here to see it. Yoda's ancient face grew somber. A feeling, I have, that my time in your world, limited it is. The Force brought me here for a purpose. That purpose, nearly fulfilled. Soon, home I may go. Or to whatever comes next. Then we make every moment count, Bane said firmly. Teach us everything you can, Master Yoda. Let your wisdom take root so deeply that even your absence cannot uproot it. The months that followed were both the most hopeful and most dangerous of Yoda's time on Azeroth. His Order of the Balanced Force grew to hundreds, with secret training sites established across the world. In Pandaria, neutral territory, Alliance and Horde students trained side by side. In Dalaran, archmages studied how the Force interacted with arcane magic. In Ironforge, dwarven paladins learned to balance the light with Force awareness. But growth brought attention. Attention brought enemies. The Twilight's Hammer cult, worshippers of the old gods, saw Yoda as a threat to their master's plans. Assassination attempts became common. Yoda survived them all, but each took a toll on his weakening body. The Scarlet Crusade, zealots who believed in the light's absolute purity, declared him a heretic. They launched raids on training sites, killing several students before Anduin's forces could stop them. Even within the Alliance and Horde leadership, opposition grew. War profiteers who made fortunes selling weapons feared peace. Generals who built careers on conquest feared obsolescence. Politicians who maintained power through fear-mongering feared educated, balanced citizens who questioned authority. The crisis came 5 months after Yoda's arrival. A summit was called in Dalaran, supposedly to discuss the Order of the Balanced Force. Leaders from both factions attended. Anduin and Bane both spoke in favor of continuing the program, but others disagreed. Lady Priscilla Ashvan, head of the Kul Tiran fleet and one of the Alliance's wealthiest nobles, stood before the assembly. This creature, this Yoda, has undermined centuries of military doctrine. Our soldiers now hesitate to kill Horde forces because they've bonded through his mysticism. This is weakness. This will get people killed. Nathanos Blightcaller, the Forsaken Ranger and loyalist to the missing Sylvanas, spoke for the Horde hardliners. The Orcs and Tauren may be swayed by pretty words and mind tricks, but the Forsaken remember. We were slaughtered by the Alliance, then rejected by them when we sought help. No amount of meditation changes that history. The debate raged for hours. Yoda sat silently, letting them speak. Finally, Jaina Proudmoore, who had been quietly observing, stood. "I destroyed Theramore's naval base," she said, her voice cutting through the arguments. "I used magic to shatter their ships and drown their crews. Hundreds died. Horde soldiers, yes, but also civilians, support staff, even children in some cases. Though we didn't know it at the time." The room fell silent. Jaina's eyes glistened. "I did this because I believed it was necessary, because I thought the Horde was irredeemable. I carried that weight for years, telling myself it was worth it. Then Master Yoda arrived, and I joined his first class in secret. Through the Force, I felt Horde warriors' memories, their humanity, or whatever equivalent their races possess." She turned to Nathanos. "I felt one memory in particular, an undead woman, reuniting with her daughter who had survived the plague. The daughter was Alliance. The mother was Forsaken. They could not touch without the daughter risking infection, so they stood on opposite sides of a river, just talking. For hours, until Alliance soldiers came and drove the Forsaken woman away, threatening to kill her as a monster." Nathanos' dead face showed no emotion, but something flickered in his eyes. Jaina continued. "That woman was killed 3 days later by Alliance, heroes farming honor kills in Hillsbrad. She never got to see her daughter again, and I realized, we're not fighting monsters. We're fighting people who have been monstrous things done to them. By us, by the Scourge, by fate." She looked around the chamber. "Master Yoda didn't show us weakness. He showed us strength. The strength to see our enemies as they truly are. The strength to question ourselves. The strength to choose peace even when war is easier." Anduin rose. "The Order of the Balanced Force continues, with full royal support. Any who disagree may bring their concerns to me directly. This summit is concluded." As the delegates filed out, Yoda approached Jaina. "Difficult that was. Bare your soul to them, you did." "Someone had to," she replied. "And it's the truth. You changed me, Master Yoda. Changed many of us. Whatever time you have left here, know that it mattered." But time, Yoda knew, was running short. That night, alone in his quarters, Yoda felt it. A presence, vast beyond comprehension, touching his mind. Not hostile, but curious, ancient. He opened himself to it, and suddenly, he was elsewhere, a realm of stars and cosmic winds. Before him stood figures of pure energy, their forms constantly shifting. Titans, the beings who had shaped Azeroth and countless other worlds, and at the center, a presence even greater. Azeroth herself, the world soul. "You do not belong here, wanderer from beyond," one Titan said, its voice like colliding galaxies. "Yet you have affected our masterwork in ways we did not foresee." Yoda bowed respectfully. "Intention? I had none. Accident? My arrival was. Accident?" Another Titan laughed, the sound like supernovas. "Nothing is accidental in a universe of order. You were brought here for a purpose. The question is, whose purpose?" Azeroth's voice, when it came, was the sound of every living thing on the planet harmonizing. "His purpose is his own. I invited him." The Titans turned to her in shock. "You summoned him? But how? You are not yet born." I am dreaming, Azeroth said. In my dreams I reach beyond this reality. I felt him there, in the spaces between worlds, a force for balance in a universe of imbalance. I called, and the force answered. She addressed Yoda directly. Thank you, small teacher. You have given my children something they desperately needed. Hope, not the false hope of prophesied saviors or divine intervention, but real hope, built on understanding and choice. Grateful, I am, Yoda replied. But home, I wish to return, if possible. Possible, yes. But are you certain? Your work here has just begun. Begun, yes. Finished, no. But finish it, I cannot. Too old I am, too tired. Continue without me, they must. Learn to stand on their own. Azeroth was silent for a moment. Then I grant you passage home. But know this, a connection remains between your force and my essence. Your students will always carry a piece of both worlds, and perhaps someday that connection may matter more than any of us can imagine. The Force wills as it wills, Yoda said simply. Trust in it. I do. The vision faded. Yoda woke in his quarters, tears on his ancient face. It was time. He called his 7 original students to him. They came immediately, sensing through their Force bond that something had changed. Leaving I am, Yoda told them simply. Home I go, or beyond. Uncertain the path is. But stay here I cannot. Valera looked stricken. But we still have so much to learn. We're not ready to lead the Order without you. Ready you are. Ready you must be. Taught you the foundations. I have. The rest, discover yourselves you will. He looked at each of them in turn. Anduin, lead with compassion, but strength also. Kings who are weak, devoured they are. Kings who are strong without compassion, become tyrants. Yes, Master. Anduin's voice was thick with emotion. Valera. Guardian, you are. Protector. But remember, protect not just with blade, but with wisdom. Sometimes, greatest protection comes from preventing fights, not winning them. The Blood Elf bowed, unable to speak. Rathian, your people's history, it haunts you, but defined by it, you are not. Choose your own path. Redemption, not inherited. Earned, it must be. The Black Dragon in human form nodded slowly. Matthias, spy, you are. Dealer in secrets. But remember, truth sometimes more powerful than deception. Wield both, yes, but know which serves the greater good. I understand, Master. Magni, Azeroth's voice you hear. My leaving makes that connection stronger it will. Guide the others. Remind them, not for faction they fight, for the world itself. The Diamond Dwarf's voice chimed like bells. I, Master, will not forget. Tess, your curse, made peace with it you must. Not eliminate it, not surrender to it, but accept both human and worgen parts of yourself. Whole, only then you will be. I'll try, Master, I promise. Lillian, undeath, not a curse it is. Different existence, yes, but existence nonetheless. Value it, use it. Teach others that life takes many forms, all worth protecting.